Hey guys, so in this video I want to talk about an issue I saw when I went back to school for psychology. And I'm not making this video to encourage anybody to, not go back to school or to, talk shit about the schools or anything. However, there were some issues that I saw that I did want to talk about, and one in particular being about how academia basically dodges around men's issues. And I'll explain that a little bit more with these points I made. So, the first point I have here is the textbook basically talks about how men are likely to benefit from marriage and how they're likely to live longer and any other benefits there are to being a man, I guess. And I'm not here to debate that or to debate how factual it is. What I am here to say is that you know they choose to include those stats, which is fine, but at the same time they don't choose to include any stats on high suicide rates or loneliness in men, such as I think it's like a third of men haven't had sex in the last year or something like that. you know and these are both really big issues, but again, uh, the textbook doesn't concern itself with it because there seems to be this weird narrative that they can't acknowledge the fact that men struggle for whatever reason. And last point I have here is it'll talk about how men drink and do drugs more and are even dying sooner. And that should be a pretty clear indicator that, hey, we're kind of struggling over here. We're not doing too well. But once again, they don't concern themselves with any of the any of the psychological struggles that men go through that cause them to do these things in the first place, right? And it usually just tries to write it off as, oh, it's just more acceptable for men to drink or to do drugs. And I don't know, I think that's kind of debatable. I know lots of women that like to drink and do drugs, but I also know lots of men that like to do that too. So I'm not too sure about that. But we also need to understand that, some guy doesn't just, randomly start shooting up heroin one day, right? Obviously, there's some sort of, struggle that he was going through that made him to do that in the first place, right? And yeah, for some reason, the textbook just doesn't want to talk about that, which is really disappointing. And I think as students and even just people in general who are concerned for men, or people who just want to, even just have a better society to live in, honestly, because I think these men's issues definitely affect women and other people too, right? I think it is our responsibility to, really have that collective pressure and to really push for, men's issues to be more recognized, right? Because if we don't do that, then a lot of these problems are going to continue to persist, and it's just going to cause, more and more problems than it already has, right? So, anyways, I hope you guys found this video useful, and I'll see you guys next time.